Negotiating an equity round with a fixed valuation is time-consuming and expensive. The SAFE offered a solution. In the US ecosystem, it worked beautifully, but India is not the US. Indian law does not recognize the SAFE as a defined instrument. In practice, the pure SAFE structure is rarely used in India. What the market has developed instead are two main instruments. Indian law requires that the conversion price be fixed or determinable at the time of issuance. We can use a well-structured CCPS with an FMB floor, a discount to the qualified round, and a default conversion backstop. It takes more work than dropping in a SAFE template, but it is the structure that will actually hold up when it matters. Hello and welcome back to the Veyrah Law series. As promised, in our next few episodes, we are moving into deeper discussions on certain popular but misunderstood legal concepts. Concepts and structures that are widely used in India, but not always understood in the Indian legal context. Today, we start with something that comes up constantly in VC and founder circles. The SAFE, Simple Agreement for Future Equity. To begin with, let us understand what a SAFE is and its origins. The SAFE was announced by Y Combinator in 2013. It was designed to solve a very real problem in early-stage investing. At the earliest stages, a startup has no revenue, no track record, and no clear basis for evaluation. Negotiating an equity round at that stage with a fixed valuation is time-consuming and expensive. The SAFE offered a solution. An investor puts in capital today, the valuation question is deferred till later, when an institutional round establishes what the company is actually worth. The SAFE then converts into equity at that round, typically at a discount to reward the early investor for taking the risk. It is clean, simple, and fast. In the US ecosystem, it worked beautifully, but India is not the US. Let's see how a SAFE could possibly work in India. First, let's look at the legal position in India. Here is where it gets complicated. Indian law does not recognize the SAFE as a defined instrument. What it does recognize are specific categories of securities and instruments, each with its own regulatory framework. The closest Indian equivalent to a SAFE is the convertible note. Under Indian law, convertible notes are permitted, but only for entities recognized as startups by the government. If your company is not a government-recognized startup, a convertible note is simply not available to you. Then there is a second problem. A convertible note is required to be structured as debt. If the note does not convert where milestones are not met, and the investor wants their money back, it creates a real problem for founders. No founder wants to carry debt, or rather should not carry debt on the balance sheet at an early stage. And no investor wants to be stuck with an instrument they cannot exit cleanly. So what does market practice actually look like in India? In practice, the pure SAFE structure is rarely used in India. What the market has developed instead are two main instruments. The Compulsorily Convertible Preference Share, better known as CCPS, and the Compulsorily Convertible Debenture, or CCD. Both are well recognized under Indian company law and exchange control regulations. Both convert into equity at a future date or event, replicating the economic logic of a SAFE. But there is one critical difference. Indian law requires that the conversion price be fixed or determinable at the time of issuance. You cannot issue a CCPS or a CCD with a completely open-ended conversion formula. Generally, there must be a floor price, a minimum valuation below which the instrument cannot convert. That floor is typically the fair market value of the shares at the time of issuance, determined by a registered valuer or merchant banker. Above that floor, the conversion price can be linked to a future qualified financing round, with a discount applied to reward the early investor. So in practice, the structure looks like this. Early investor puts in capital, receives CCPS, and a conversion price is pegged subject to the fair market value floor price. When a qualified institutional round happens, the conversion price of the CCPS are readjusted by offering a discount to that round's price. This is, however, subject always to the fair market value floor determined at time of issuance. Liquidation preferences and anti-dilution protections can be built into the CCPS terms at the time of issuance, aligning the instrument with future institutional round standards. Some founders prefer to start with a CCD, which later converts into CCPS at a defined event. This adds a step to the process and can complicate documents in some instances. So which structure should investors and founders really use? Here is what we would recommend. First, use a CCPS. It is the cleanest structure. Our consistent position to clients has been to use a CCPS. It is a recognized instrument under Indian company law. It is compliant with exchange control laws. It allows full alignment with future institutional rounds. Liquidation preferences, anti-dilution rights can all be built in on day one. It avoids the debt characterization of a convertible note, which most founders should rightly avoid. Second, always fix a fair market value floor price. This is non-negotiable. Indian law requires it for foreign investors, and it is good practice regardless. The FMV floor is the absolute minimum at which the CCPS can convert. It caps the maximum dilution for the founder in a worst-case scenario. It provides certainty for the investor. Get a proper FMV valuation from a registered valuer at the time of issuance. Document it correctly. Third, account for delays in the institutional round. Markets change. When funding markets are buoyant, institutional rounds happen quickly. When markets tighten, and they do, qualified financing can be delayed well beyond original timelines. Your CCPS structure must account for this. Include a default conversion mechanism so that if the qualified round does not happen within the agreed timeline, the CCPS conversion price crystallizes. This protects the investor from being in limbo indefinitely, and it gives the founder a clear deadline to work towards. Fourth, avoid convertible notes and CCDs unless necessary. Convertible notes carry debt. Founders should not have debt on the balance sheet at the early stage. And convertible notes are only available to government-recognized startups. A CCD adds a conversion step that is often unnecessary. Unless there are specific commercial or tax reasons, interest deductibility, debt classification for accounting, or other external factors, the CCPS is almost always the cleaner choice. Let us close this with the key takeaway. The safe as used in the West does not exist in Indian law, but the economic intent, deferred valuation, early capital, future round alignment can be achieved in India. We can use a well-structured CCPS with an FMB floor, a discount to the qualified round, and a default conversion backstop. It takes more work than dropping in a safe template, but it is the structure that will actually hold up when it matters. As the saying goes, the devil is in the details. In Indian startup structuring, the detail is everything. Get it right at the start. Thank you for watching and see you in the next episode.